The Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein has heard arguments by Afriforum in an attempt to legalise the display of the 1928 apartheid flag. Afriforum is appealing against the Equality Court order that ruled that gratuitous display of the old national flag constitutes hate speech, unfair discrimination and harassment. The order favoured the application by the Nelson Mandela Foundation that the display of the flag constitutes, among others, hate speech under the promotion of equality and prevention of unfair discrimination. The Nelson Mandela Foundation is arguing that the flag is an unambiguous symbol of white supremacy. Afriforum today argued that the Equality Court's order on the displaying of the old flag set off a series of unintended consequences for the future. It has told the court that the order was made without meeting the required threshold to declare the act as hate speech. It contends that there should be facts about the act before determining whether something amounts to hate speech. Well, we'll take this discussion forward. We're now joined on the line by Ernst Van Zyl. He is the Campaign Officer for Strategy and Content at Afriforum. And we're also joined by the CEO for the Nelson Mandela Foundation, Mr. Sello Hatang. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and a very good afternoon to you. I'm going to start with Afriforum, and I want to know why it's so important for your organization to legalise the display of the 1928 apartheid flag post the apartheid era. In fact, how do you justify your appeal of the judgment banning the old South African flag as free speech?
Good afternoon, Unati. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Yes, so it's very simple in regards to South Africa's constitutional order why Afriforum is taking this case, because this case is much larger than just the flag. It's not about the flag, it's about the larger principle at stake, and that is freedom of speech. And freedom of speech is a right that is enshrined in our South African Constitution. And the reason why it's in the Constitution is the fact that freedom of speech and the right to freedom of speech and expression is there to protect speech that others might not like, speech that is disliked, speech that is even hated maybe. It's not there to protect, really to protect speech that everyone likes. If freedom of speech and the constitutional right to freedom of speech was there to protect speech that everyone liked, it wouldn't need to be protected in the Constitution because it wouldn't be a controversial matter. Therefore, Afriforum is taking on this case because it is a case that waters down freedom of speech. It is a case, and the banning of the old South African flag is a case of freedom of speech being eroded. And the thing about the erosion of freedom of speech is you can't just always flee to the lesser controversial issues, because then the lesser controversial issues in the future become the new most controversial issues. And then you just keep fleeing the water as it rises. And in the end, there's no more ground left. And then you are left with no freedom of speech at all, something that many people in this country fought very hard for to attain.
Mr. Hatang, you've heard what Mr. Van Zyl had to say, representing Afriforum, saying this is not just about a flag. Of course, this matter really came to the fore in 2017, essentially, during the protests we saw against farm murders, where some protesters brandished the old flag. Does displaying this 1928 apartheid flag constitute hate speech? I mean, the Equality Court certainly seems to think that it is a form of hate speech.
Thank you very much, Unati. I think for us it's important that we remind ourselves and remind Afriforum of two things, which again were said in court today. The High Court, the Equality Court, found that it is hate speech. And their contention today that this is not just about the flag. The court, again, kept on saying, but let's confine ourselves to what the application is about. Let's not try to be delusionally trying to bring in things that do not belong in the court. Making it too theoretical doesn't help, because those who went out even on Black Monday, the court was told by our counsel, senior counsel, who said those who even went, who were black people who went to march as well, to condemn farm murders, meant that they were also harassed and also felt the pain of what that flag represents. The second thing I think which is important is we are not calling for the banning of the flag. this is a critical point that was made again in court. And when the Council for Afriforum was asked that the Nelson Mandela Foundation did not apply for the outright banning of the flag, we have applied for it not to be displayed gratuitously. What it means is that with no cause, you then display the flag, unless if you are pining for apartheid, then you must then be able to use that flag. The flag is not just something that's just theoretical, and again, that doesn't have meaning. Flags speak words. Flags speak about our nationhood, who we are. And I think if we are to do anything, is to oppose what Afriforum is trying to do, which is to fragment our already fragmented democracy, and to try and do the gains that we've had in terms of working against white supremacy. And I think that's a critical point that needs to be emphasized.
Mr. Van Zyl, just, taking off from what Mr. Hatang is saying, of course, also, Judge Mojapelo also in his judgment saying that people who display the old South African flag choose a symbol of oppression and awake feelings of white supremacy against black people. Just on the back of what Mr. Hatang has just said, what do you make of that statement?
Well, firstly, it really depends on a case-by-case basis, and there's something that I actually want to respond to there as well, and it's very important, and that is the fact that he now mentioned, my partner on the panel has mentioned that it's not a ban, but a ban is to legally prohibit, and if the flag is hate speech and it is flown in public, there will be legal consequences. That is a ban. That is what it means. You're not allowed to wave it in public, otherwise there will be legal consequences. And the thing is, when it comes to the flag itself, it means a lot of things, and definitely Afriforum absolutely does not deny that the old South African flag does cause a lot of offense to many South Africans. That's not something we deny. But at the same time, many symbols mean many different things to many people. For example, if you were to, but the precedent that is set here by banning a symbol because it is offensive means other symbols then also need to be banned in order to be consistent with that principle that is set there. So if you look at the old South African flag being banned, or the case of it being banned because it is offensive, that means that other symbols like, for example, the ANC flag, because it represents corruption, that people might find offensive. The denial of farm murders in South Africa, me coming from a farming community, is something I find deeply offensive. Therefore, to be consistent, that type of speech would also need to be banned. That is the principle that is being set here. But we know that that's not going to happen. It's not going to be consistently applied when it comes to this. This principle is only this precedent is only going to be used to help certain groups and certain people in power, and that's what we are trying to prevent. The thing is, when it comes to the banning of certain symbols because it is offensive, is you can just look at the case of Dubla Ibunu or Kill the Boer. If the Nelson Mandela Foundation was really concerned about genuine hate speech, as they claim to be, they would join us as a partner in that case to have Kill the Boer declared hate speech and to ban it, but they have not, which just shows that double standard which we know will happen in the future with this precedent.
Double standard aside, Mr. Van Zyl, some think it's hypocritical of you to want to ban certain freedom songs, but yet you are saying that banning this flag is going to set some sort of precedent?
No, to respond to that, it's not hypocritical at all. If you want to permit people to sing in public about killing an entire racial group, then there's something wrong with you, not something wrong with me. The thing about hate speech is that it contains a call to violence. That is why Afriforum is doing the case to ban the singing of Kill the Boer, because it is a direct call to violence. It is a call to murder a group of people based on their ethnicity or their racial group. That is why Afriforum is taking on that case. If you see that as fine, if you see the singing of killing an entire racial group as fine, that's a different matter. But when it comes to the difference between the flag case and that case, let me put it very simply. Me, as an Afriforum member and someone that works for Afriforum, I can pledge and promise that I will never wave the old South African flag in public. But a singer of the song Kill the Boer, like Julius Malema, or EFF members, the leader of the EFF, Julius Malema, cannot pledge in court that he will never call for the slaughtering of white people. That's the difference.
Mr. Hatang, I'd like you to respond to what Mr. Van Zyl is saying, but I'd also just want to add this. In his judgment, Judge Phineas Mojapelo said displaying the flag was racist and discriminatory. And we know that racism is, by its very definition, violence. Just on the back of what he said about, freedom songs, that they are violent. Racism is also violent. Of course, the argument is also that this flag, which is not just an old flag, but it is a symbol of hate to many people, especially black people, because of its association to apartheid.
One of the saddest things is how selective Afriforum is in its reporting. I mean, today our council did mention that even with Dubulebunu, the High Court did find that it was hate speech, and the hypocrisy is really unbelievable. And also our council mentioned today that we would never be a party to anything that advocates for violence, and to now come on this platform and claim that no, we would be silent when there's a call for people to be murdered is also untrue. And I think it's important that as we remind ourselves of the history that we've lived, for some of us, maybe for others, it's not something that they take seriously as we do. The hurt that comes with the flag that we are contending today is so deep that we cannot ignore. And I think for as long as the Nelson Mandela Foundation can...
All right, we seem to have lost Mr. Hatang, but we'll try and get him back on. But Mr. Van Zyl, let's continue here now, just based on the final words that Mr. Hatang, representing the Nelson Mandela Foundation, has just said. And he mentioned the word hate. In fact, in his judgment, I'd like to paraphrase again, Judge Mojapelo, at pains to say that hate speech was not just limited to words, but extended to conduct and gestures, and that displaying the old flag caused more hurt, more emotional stress to black people, and its display reminded them of the oppression they had moved away from. Does that not concern you as a South African citizen?
No, I think it's very unfair and very cold to imply that I don't have empathy for other people's emotions. I think that would mean that you can look into the souls of people like me and know what I'm thinking. I don't think that's very fair at all. Me personally, I don't feel anything for the flag. Like I said earlier, I can pledge that I will never wave it. I can't see any reason why I would. But at the same time, this is about a very important principle that is enshrined in our very constitutional order. Our constitutional order that people fought and died for is not just simple. It's very complex. It's what's in the Constitution. It's the rights that every South African is given. And those rights need to be taken very seriously. The right to freedom of speech is one of the most serious rights in the Constitution, because if you don't have freedom of speech, you cannot defend your other rights. That is why it's so important. That's why Afriforum is willing to take up a case that is so controversial, that a case that where we get so much criticism. We are willing to do it because it is for a very, very integral part of our nation, of our constitutional order of our nation. And just a final thought that I find funny, that the Nelson Mandela Foundation says that they would never call for violence. I mean, here's a direct quote from one of their press statements where they said, "The use of violence can be rational and carefully targeted as a part of a strategy to counter structural and other forms of violence against black lives." That is a call to violence. That is saying violence is okay in certain circumstances. So that's you can go read it for yourself on their website. But yeah, in the end, when it comes to freedom of speech in South Africa, I think people need to take the Constitution a lot more seriously and start not just watering down the rights that we were given and the rights that many people fought for short-term debates like this. These things are much more complex than simple ways of looking at it. We need to look at the reason why these rights are important. Why is it important that we have freedom of speech? Why does it need to be protected? Those are the right questions that need to be answered and asked.
It's a pity we've lost Mr. Hatang, Mr. Van Zyl, but thank you so much for those comments. I would have liked for Mr. Hatang, representing the Nelson Mandela Foundation, to speak on your last utterances in terms of using strategic violence. Of course, we know where that stems from. But thank you so much, Mr. Van Zyl, for your time this afternoon.
All right, goodbye. Thank you for the platform.